Linda Wilson, a shrewd real estate mogul, overhears her son-in-law Alex mock her, unaware she's secretly funding his startup, Elevate Tech Solutions. As Alex's financial mismanagement and personal betrayal surface, Linda orchestrates a takeover, demoting him and installing her daughter Rachel as CMO. Tensions escalate as Alex retaliates with media attacks and lawsuits, accusing Linda of sabotaging his marriage and company. Rachel uncovers Alex's plan to sell Elevate's secrets to a competitor, Meridian Ventures, while plotting to discard her. With evidence mounting, what will Alex's next desperate move be, and can Rachel reclaim her future? If this gripping tale of betrayal and triumph resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Support our channel for more compelling stories. Share where you're tuning in from, and don't miss tomorrow's special tale. Your support fuels our storytelling. Join our community now. As I stood in the shadowed hallway outside their bedroom, my son-in-law's voice pierced the stillness, each word a needle against my skin. God, your mom's perfume, it clings to everything. That old people's smell. His laugh was sharp, cruel, slicing through the quiet like a shard of glass. Can we convince her to ditch it? My daughter's reply was a murmur, too faint to decipher, but its silence screamed louder than any defense could. No protest, no shield for the mother who'd just left 3 home-cooked meals at their door, a small gesture because Rachel had sighed about work, devouring her time. My cashmere sweater felt like a cocoon, clinging to me as I stood frozen. The 200 Joe Malone perfume, Rachel's Christmas gift, now a bitter accusation turned inward. I was 58, vibrant, far from the grave, but in that instant, every year pressed down like stones dragging me under. Alex couldn't possibly know, sprawled in the sleek comfort of the downtown loft I'd quietly made possible, that just that morning I'd sent another $75,000 to Elevate Tech Solutions. His company, his vision, his stage to dazzle the world, and apparently my ticket to being dismissed as a relic. I'm Linda Wilson, a name that carries weight I earned long before most. By 30, I'd built a real estate portfolio, flipping houses in neighborhoods others had abandoned, turning their sneers into my fuel. Just a housewife with a hobby, they'd mutter, right before I'd outmaneuver them, claiming the properties they'd underestimated. Now, at 58, I command commercial real estate across 3 states with passive income that flows like a steady river. I rise at 5 a.m., not out of necessity, but love. Love for the deals, the strategy, the quiet power of building something lasting. My husband, Robert, is my soft harbor, a literature professor whose gentle soul tempered my fire until his heart condition forced him to retire early. We raised Rachel, our only child, with lessons in grit and generosity, perhaps wrapping her too tightly in security. She never felt the cold bite of financial fear, and maybe that left her unprepared for sharper truths. When Rachel introduced Alex Parker 3 years ago, I wanted to believe in her glow. He was polished, a Denver archetype, haircut that cost more than most people's groceries, stubble artfully maintained, Patagonia vest layered over crisp shirts. His dreams were grand, his talk of revolutionizing environmental tech delivered with a salesman's charm. Over brunch at our Cherry Creek haunt, Rachel's voice danced with awe. Mom, he's a genius. His ideas could rewrite how businesses tackle their carbon footprint. Robert's hand found mine under the table, our quiet signal to pause, to observe. I smiled, probing Alex about his business plan. His passion was undeniable, but when I asked about funding, his eyes flickered, a crack in the gloss. Several investors are interested, he said, voice smooth as silk. We're just tying up loose ends. I nodded, my years in boardrooms telling me those words often hid empty promises. Real money doesn't need vague assurances. 6 months later, they were engaged. 3 months after that, Rachel's call came, her voice breaking. Alex's business partner had walked away, leaving his dream teetering. He'll lose everything, Mom, she whispered. He needs $200,000. My heart sank, warning bells clanging. Robert was resolute that night, his voice firm in the dark of our bedroom. Help with a home, a wedding, fine. But a business with no proof? If it's so revolutionary, where are the other investors? Yet I knew the sting of doubt, the weight of being dismissed because I didn't fit the mold of success. So I agreed, but on my terms. I created a holding company to funnel the money anonymously, shielding Alex from knowing his mother-in-law was his savior. I brought in Victor Rodriguez, my sharpest ally, as the new partner to monitor the business with monthly reports. Why hide it? Rachel asked, her brow furrowed. Because true confidence is earned, I told her. If he knows it's us, he'll never feel he's stood on his own. She nodded, her practicality mirroring mine, though her trust outpaced my caution. Their wedding was a vision, set against the Denver Botanic Gardens' lush backdrop, mountains standing sentinel. My silver dress made me feel like a queen. Robert, thinner from his heart treatments, was radiant in his tuxedo. Watching Rachel vow her life to Alex, I swallowed my reservations. Her love was a beacon, and I clung to its light. Post-honeymoon, they moved into the downtown loft, another quiet gift, framed as a favorable lease through my properties. Rachel soared in her marketing career, while Alex threw himself into Elevate, energized by the mysterious investment. For 6 months, it felt like harmony. Rachel radiated joy, Alex's company gained ground, and Victor's reports lauded his hustle and creativity. I wondered if I'd been too quick to judge. Then came the dinner party at their loft, a stage for Alex's ambition. Robert stayed home, his doctor's orders against late nights, leaving me to attend alone. A bottle of fine champagne in hand, my cashmere sweater soft, hair freshly styled, and a defiant spritz of Joe Malone. Rachel's hug at the door was warm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of strain. "So glad you're here, Mom," she said, taking the champagne. "Victor says the Hoffman contract's nearly done." Her confusion at Victor's name was brief, quickly masked. "Right, Alex is thrilled." The loft gleamed, Rachel's design genius in every corner. The guests were young, Denver's tech vanguard in tailored casual, their confidence a polished veneer. I felt the old twinge of being the room's elder, but squared my shoulders. I'd earned my place long before their startups were born. Alex saw me from across the room, his smile tightening before he approached, kissing my cheek with practiced ease. "Linda, you didn't need to brave city traffic," he said, as if my 20-minute drive from Lakewood was a pilgrimage. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. "I'm proud of you." He nodded, eyes already roving, then led me into a whirlwind of introductions to game changers. The evening flowed smoothly. I spoke with a woman pioneering sustainable packaging, a venture capitalist who sharpened when I mentioned a property his firm was chasing. But as I reached for a drink, Alex's voice drifted from the kitchen, low and unguarded, speaking to a friend. "Your mother-in-law seems nice," the friend said. "She's fine," Alex replied, voice flat. "Old money, old mindset. Doesn't grasp what we're building." The friend laughed. "Old money spends though, right?" Alex's tone soured. "If I could touch it, maybe. This apartment's just a loan, technically. Rachel acts like we owe them everything." My hand froze on my glass. "At least she came alone," he added. "Her husband's this frail professor, always sizing me up like I'm a lab rat. And that perfume, she thinks it's fancy, but it's awful. Rachel got it for her, and now I'm stuck with it every time she's here." I set my glass down, pulse racing, and slipped away, the night blurring into forced smiles and a quiet exit. The sleek glass tower of Elevate's headquarters loomed over Denver's skyline, its 15th floor a testament to the ambition that bordered on recklessness. The startup's lavish office screamed success, but to me, it was a glaring symbol of Alex's unchecked spending habits, a warning sign that his vision might outstrip his judgment. As I stepped into the pristine reception area, the young woman behind the desk jolted at the sound of my name. "Mrs. Wilson," she stammered, her fingers hovering uncertainly over the phone. I don't think you're on the calendar." Her wide eyes betrayed a mix of confusion and unease, as if my presence disrupted some unspoken protocol. "I'm here for the board meeting," I replied, my tone deliberately warm, my smile unwavering despite the nervous energy radiating from her. "Please let Mr. Rodriguez know I've arrived." Her brow shot up. "The board meeting? But that's a closed session." "I'm aware," I said, my voice steady, my expression pleasant but firm. "Please make the call." She hesitated, her gaze flickering between me and the phone, as if weighing the consequences of defying me. After a tense moment, she dialed. her voice low and hurried. I stood patiently, my hands clasped, feeling the familiar weight of authority settle over me. This wasn't my first time navigating a room where I wasn't expected, and it wouldn't be my last. Moments later, Victor Rodriguez appeared, his polished demeanor a stark contrast to the receptionist's flustered state. His dark eyes held a flicker of admiration, a subtle acknowledgement of the move I was about to make. "Mrs. Wilson, thank you for coming," he said, his tone professional but warm, as if we were old allies. "The board is just getting settled. Shall we?" He gestured toward the conference room, and I nodded, falling into step beside him. My heart beat steadily, but beneath my calm exterior, a storm of emotions churned. Resolve, anticipation, and a quiet ache for what this day might cost me. The boardroom was a study in modern opulence. A long glass table, sleek chairs, and a view of the Rockies that could make anyone feel invincible. But the moment I crossed the threshold, the air shifted. Alex, seated at the head of the table, froze mid-sentence, his charismatic pitch cut off like a record scratch. His eyes locked on mine, and for a fleeting second I saw shock give way to something sharper. Betrayal, perhaps, or the dawning realization that his carefully curated world was about to unravel. The three board members, all handpicked by Maggie, my trusted advisor, exchanged knowing glances. They weren't surprised to see me, but the glint in their eyes suggested they were eager to witness what came next. "Linda," Alex said, recovering quickly, his voice slipping into the smooth, charming cadence he wielded like a weapon. "This is a closed meeting. I'm sure Rachel would love to have dinner soon, but right now, Actually," I interrupted, my tone light but unyielding. "I'm right where I need to be." I slid into the empty chair across from him, my movements deliberate, my gaze never leaving his. "Please continue." "I believe you were discussing the reorganization of the executive team." For a moment, Alex's carefully constructed facade cracked. Confusion flickered across his face, followed by a flash of annoyance. He turned to Victor, his voice tight. "What is she doing here?" The chairman, a distinguished man in his 60s with a debt of gratitude to me from years past, cleared his throat. His presence carried the weight of experience, and his voice was calm but commanding. "Mr. Parker, allow me to introduce Linda Wilson properly. Ms. Wilson represents Wilson Holdings, the primary investment vehicle behind Elevate's initial and ongoing funding." The color drained from Alex's face, his confidence evaporating as the truth hit him like a physical blow. "What?" he stammered. "No, that's impossible. Our primary investor is Summit Ventures. They're a Silicon Valley firm." "Summit Ventures is a subsidiary of Wilson Holdings," I said, my voice steady, almost gentle, as if explaining a simple fact to a child. "Which means, for the past 18 months, I've been your primary investor." Alex stared at me, his mouth slightly agape, the weight of my words sinking in. The room was silent, the tension thick enough to choke on. I pressed on, my tone calm but relentless. "Now, I believe we were discussing leadership concerns. Please don't let my presence disrupt the agenda." The meeting proceeded with a formality that bordered on painful. The board laid out their concerns with surgical precision. Alex's excessive spending, his questionable decisions, his inflated projections that promised the moon but delivered far less. Victor, ever the pragmatist, presented an alternative vision for Elevate's future, one grounded in fiscal responsibility and strategic clarity. Through it all, Alex's composure unraveled. His hands fidgeted, his jaw clenched, and his usual silver-tongued eloquence faltered. For perhaps the first time in his career, the man who thrived on charm and bravado found himself outmaneuvered. When the presentation concluded, Alex's frustration boiled over. He slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "This is ridiculous," he snapped, his voice raw with desperation. "You can't just waltz in here and take over a company I built from nothing." I raised an eyebrow, my calm unshaken. "From nothing? That's an interesting perspective for someone who received an initial investment of $200,000 and subsequent infusions totaling another $350,000. That money was from legitimate investors who believed in my vision," he shot back, his face flushed with indignation. "That money," I said, each word sharp and deliberate, "was from me. Every dollar. And while I still believe in the company's potential, I've lost faith in your ability to lead it. His face contorted, a mix of fury and disbelief. This is about Rachel, isn't it? She put you up to this because I asked for some space from her overbearing family. The room fell deathly silent. The board members shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between us. I leaned forward, my voice low but piercing. No, Alex, this is about business. Your business practices have been questionable at best and fraudulent at worst. You've misrepresented expenditures, inflated projections, and taken credit for innovations that came from your team. I opened the folder Victor had provided and slid a stack of documents across the table. This is a formal notice of leadership change. The board has already approved it. Effective immediately, Victor Rodriguez will assume the role of CEO. You will remain as Chief Innovation Officer, focusing on product development, where, frankly, your talents actually lie. Alex stared at the papers, his breathing shallow, his hands trembling. You can't do this, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I already have, I replied, my tone final. And before you consider fighting this legally, I suggest you review your original investment agreement, particularly the clauses regarding financial mismanagement. The chairman spoke up, his voice steady. The board is unanimous on this matter, Mr. Parker. We believe this structure better serves the company's future. Alex's eyes swept the table, searching for an ally, a lifeline. He found none. Finally, his gaze locked on mine, cold and furious. You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? Wormed your way into my business to control me? No, I said softly, my voice heavy with the weight of truth. I invested because my daughter loves you, and I wanted you to succeed. But then I heard what you really think of me, of my old money, my old people smell. His face paled, the memory of his careless words hitting him like a slap. You entered my family, accepted our help, lived in our property, took our money, all while mocking us behind our backs. You used my daughter to create distance when it suited you. So yes, I protected my investment, both financial and familial. I stood, smoothing my suit jacket, my composure intact despite the storm raging inside me. Oh, and Alex, the apartment you're living in, the lease will need to be renegotiated. Under the current arrangement, only family members receive preferential rates. As I walked out of the boardroom, I felt no triumph, only a bone-deep resolve. The fallout with Rachel loomed like a shadow, and I knew it might cost me dearly. She might not forgive me, not today, not tomorrow, maybe not ever. But I had protected her future, even if she couldn't see it yet. In the elevator, Victor caught up with me, his voice low. That was both the most terrifying and impressive thing I've ever witnessed. Sometimes the best investments are the ones you don't make, I replied, my gaze fixed on the descending numbers. And sometimes the most important ones have nothing to do with money. The hardest part lay ahead, facing Rachel. I had evidence of everything: Alex's financial mismanagement, his disparaging comments, the subtle ways he'd isolated her from us. If she chose him after knowing the truth, I would have to accept it, but at least she'd make that choice with her eyes wide open. As I stepped into the Denver sunshine, my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Mom, we need to talk. Something's happened with Alex's company. My heart clenched, but I typed back, I know, sweetheart. Come to the house tonight. It's time for some truths. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:30 a.m., Rachel's name flashing across the screen. My stomach twisted, but I answered, stepping onto the patio with my coffee, the sunrise casting a golden glow over the mountains. Mom! Rachel's voice was strained, almost unrecognizable, trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. What did you do? I protected an investment, I said softly, my eyes fixed on the horizon. An investment? She repeated, her voice rising with disbelief. You humiliated my husband in front of his entire board. Rachel, I said gently, we need to talk in person, not over the phone. No, we need to talk now, she snapped, her words spilling out in a frantic rush. Alex came home yesterday completely destroyed. He said you blindsided him, that you've been secretly controlling his company from the beginning. Is that true? Were you behind Elevate's funding this whole time? I closed my eyes, the weight of her pain pressing against my chest. Yes. The silence that followed was deafening, heavy with betrayal. Why? She finally asked, her voice small, almost childlike. Why would you do that without telling me? Because you asked me to help him, I replied, my voice steady despite the ache in my heart. You called me in tears, saying his business partner had backed out, that he was going to lose everything. I wanted to help, but on my terms. I didn't want him to feel like he was living off family money. I thought it would be better for his pride, for your marriage, if the investment seemed to come from outside. Rachel's laugh was bitter, cutting through the line like a knife. His pride, Mom, he's devastated. He thinks our entire relationship has been some kind of setup, that I married him as part of your scheme to control his company. My stomach dropped, a cold dread settling in. That's ridiculous. I only stepped in yesterday because of the financial mismanagement. Stop it, she snapped, her voice sharp with anger. You had no right to interfere like this. Alex built that company from nothing. It was his vision, his work, with my money, I said quietly. And yes, his vision has value. That's why he's still Chief Innovation Officer. But Rachel, there are things you don't know. Then tell me, she challenged, her voice trembling with defiance. What horrible things has Alex done that justify you secretly taking over his company? I hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. I've had Victor monitoring the finances for months. There were inconsistencies, excessive spending, misrepresented projections. Business stuff, she cut in dismissively. Every startup has growing pains. You could have talked to him, helped him. Instead, you ambushed him. It's not just the business, I admitted, my voice heavy. It's how he talks about our family when he thinks we can't hear. How he's been gradually isolating you from us. Rachel went quiet, the silence stretching taut between us. What are you talking about? At your dinner party 3 months ago, I said. I overheard him mocking us to his friends, calling me old, saying my perfume, the one you gave me, smelled like old people. Laughing about how your father looks at him. He was probably just blowing off steam, she said, but her voice wavered, the conviction draining from it. People say stupid things sometimes. And what about asking you to create distance between us? I pressed. Was that just blowing off steam too? Another silence, heavier this time. He's been under a lot of pressure, she said faintly. Rachel, I said softly, when was the last time you spoke to your father? He's been trying to reach you for weeks. I've been busy, she replied, the words automatic, rehearsed. Too busy for a 10-minute call to a man with a heart condition? I asked. That's not the daughter I raised. Her breath caught, a small, audible gasp. That's not fair. No, it's not, I agreed. But it's what's happening. It's a pattern I've seen before. Partners who slowly cut their spouses off from family support. Alex is not abusive, she said firmly, but there was a tremor in her voice. Not all control is physical, I replied. Sometimes it's about who you talk to, where your money goes, what you're allowed to question. The line went quiet, so quiet I thought she might have hung up. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to think. I can't talk to you right now. Rachel, please. No, Mom, you've done enough. Just give me some space, though. This call ended and I sat motionless, the coffee in my hand long gone cold. The golden light of the sunrise felt mocking now, its beauty at odds with the ache in my chest. Robert found me 30 minutes later, still staring into the distance. Without a word, he pulled up a chair beside me and took my hand, his presence a quiet anchor in the storm. She called, I said, my voice hollow. He nodded. I heard. She hates me. She's confused, he corrected gently, his voice steady despite the pain in his eyes. And hurt, but she's smart, Linda. She'll piece things together. I turned to him, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. What if I've ruined everything? What if she chooses him? Then we'll respect her choice, he said, though his voice cracked slightly. But we'll never stop being her parents. I squeezed his hand, drawing strength from the man who had been my partner for over 3 decades. I need to show her the evidence, all of it. Give her a day, he advised. Let her process the shock first. I nodded, knowing he was right, though every instinct screamed to go to her immediately. Instead, I turned my focus to Elevate. Victor had scheduled an all-hands meeting to announce the leadership changes, and the press release was drafted. By noon, my phone was buzzing with notifications, emails from board members, texts from Maggie, and a message from Victor. Announcement complete, Alex no-show. Team taking it better than expected. Need to talk about next steps. I called him immediately. What do you mean, no-show? He didn't come in today, Victor explained. Sent an email at 5 a.m. saying he was taking personal time. I had to handle the announcement alone. I frowned. That's unprofessional. It's understandable, Victor countered. You did just demote him from his own company. His partially built, mismanaged company that I funded, I reminded him. What's the team's reaction? Mixed, he admitted. Shock, obviously, some confusion, but also relief from the finance and operations people. They've been struggling with his leadership style for months. And you explained that his role is still central to the company's future? Emphasized it heavily, Victor assured me. Made it clear this restructuring is to let him focus on innovation, which is his strength. Good, I said, nodding absently. Keep things moving forward. I'll handle the personal side. After hanging up, I sent Rachel a simple text. When you're ready to talk, I have documentation of everything. I love you. No response came. That evening, Robert and I ate dinner in a heavy silence, the kind that carried the weight of 35 years of marriage, but was now laden with worry. As we cleared the dishes, the doorbell rang, startling us both. We exchanged a glance. Visitors were rare this late. Robert moved to the door and I followed, a sixth sense whispering who it might be. The door swung open to reveal Alex, standing on our porch in the gathering dusk. His usually impeccable appearance was in disarray, wrinkled clothes, uncombed hair, bloodshot eyes. But what struck me most was the calculated contrition on his face, a look I'd seen in countless investment pitches when someone was scrambling to salvage a failing deal. Alex, Robert said coolly, this is unexpected. I needed to talk to you both, Alex replied, his voice carefully measured despite his disheveled state. About yesterday, about everything. Robert glanced back at me, his eyebrow raised in a silent question. I nodded slightly and he stepped aside. Come in. Alex entered with a hesitancy I'd never seen in him, his eyes darting around our living room, the wall of books, the framed family photos, the garden Robert had tended for decades. Can I get you something to drink? Robert offered, ever polite, ever the professor. No, thank you, Alex said, remaining standing even as we sat. I won't stay long. I folded my hands in my lap, waiting. This was his move, and I was content to let him make it. What happened yesterday, he began, choosing his words with visible care, was a shock. Finding out that my mother-in-law has been secretly investing in my company from the beginning. It's a lot to process. Investing, I corrected quietly, not controlling. Until yesterday. His jaw tightened, but he pressed on. Right, investing. The point is, I understand now that there's been a serious breakdown in communication. Rachel is devastated. She feels caught between her husband and her parents. That's not fair to her. Robert leaned forward slightly. Where is Rachel now? At home, Alex replied. She wanted to come, but I thought it would be better if I spoke to you first, to clear the air. I watched him, my expression neutral. Interesting choice, I thought, but he didn't say aloud. I admit, Alex continued, I've made mistakes. The business grew faster than I could handle. I got caught up in the vision, the possibilities. Maybe I spent too freely, made projections that were too optimistic. But that's what entrepreneurs do. We dream big. His voice took on a passionate edge, the salesman reemerging. Elevate is working, Linda. The technology is sound. The contracts are coming in. With the right support, we could revolutionize how businesses approach sustainability. I know, I said simply. That's why I invested in the first place. That's why you're still Chief Innovation Officer instead of completely removed from the company. He flinched at the reminder of his demotion. About that, I think we need to reconsider the arrangement. The team looks to me as the founder, the visionary. This abrupt change sends the wrong message to the market, to our clients. I studied him, my silence deliberate. Even now, he was trying to claw his way back to the top. Alex, I said finally, why are you really here? He blinked, momentarily thrown off. I told you, to clear the air. No, I interrupted gently, my voice soft but unyielding. You're here to... The air in the room felt thick with unspoken accusations as I faced Alex, his usual charm fraying at the edges, revealing a raw, defensive edge beneath. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, his eyes betrayed a flicker of something. Panic, perhaps, or the weight of being caught. This is about more than some careless remark at a cocktail party, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside me. It's about a consistent pattern of disrespect toward the family that has bent over backward to support you. It's about the way you've deliberately distanced Rachel from her parents, all while accepting our financial help and then mocking us when you thought no one was listening. Alex's carefully curated facade slipped further, and a spark of anger flared in his eyes, sharp and unyielding. So what? This is revenge? He shot back, his voice dripping with defiance. You're sabotaging my career because I bruised your ego? The accusation stung, but it was Robert who reacted first, rising abruptly from his chair. His usual calm, scholarly demeanor gave way to a fierce intensity that seemed to catch Alex off guard. That's enough, Robert said, his voice low, but carrying the weight of a man who'd reached his limit. You've been handed an opportunity most entrepreneurs would dream of: guaranteed funding, a continued role in the company you built, and the freedom to focus on the creative work you claim to love, without the administrative responsibilities you've repeatedly shown you can't manage. Alex took an instinctive step back, clearly unprepared for the force of Robert's words. His confidence wavered, but Robert wasn't done. Instead of showing even a shred of gratitude, he continued, his tone deceptively calm, you waltz into our home, scheming to manipulate your way back into power. And worse, you've left our daughter at home, upset and confused, while you try to strike some backroom deal with her parents. I watched Alex closely, searching his face for any sign of remorse. Instead, I saw calculation, a cold, deliberate weighing of his next move. My heart sank as I realized the truth. Rachel doesn't even know you're here, does she? I asked softly, already knowing the answer. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, betraying him. I told her it'd be better to handle the business side first, he said, his voice clipped, as if that explanation could justify his secrecy. Better for who? I pressed, my voice steady but laced with the hurt of betrayal, not just for myself, but for Rachel. Because that's what matters to you, isn't it? Not her feelings, not our family, but your position. Alex straightened, abandoning any pretense of contrition. Fine, you want the truth? Yes, I came to negotiate. This isn't just about me anymore, it's about Rachel's future too. My demotion impacts her, our plans, the life we're trying to build. His words were bold, but there was a hollowness to them, a rehearsed quality that made my skin crawl. How exactly does it impact her? I countered, refusing to let him dodge the question. Your salary hasn't changed. Your equity in the company is untouched. The only thing that's different is you're no longer making financial decisions you were never equipped to handle in the first place. His face darkened, and for a moment I saw the real Alex, the one who thrived on control, not collaboration. This was never about qualifications, he spat. It's about you needing to keep me in my place. From the day Rachel brought me home, you've been waiting for me to slip up, to prove I don't measure up to your perfect standards. I shook my head, the weight of his accusations settling heavily on my shoulders. No, Alex, we welcomed you. We believed in you. We invested in your dream when no one else would. All we asked in return was respect. For Rachel. For our family. My voice trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the depth of my disappointment. Respect? He scoffed, his laugh bitter and hollow. Is that what you call having Victor spy on me? Setting me up to fail? Humiliating me in front of my own board? You did that to yourself, Robert interjected, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. And from where I'm standing, you haven't learned a single thing from it. Before Alex could respond, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it, and I caught a subtle shift in his expression, something guarded, almost secretive. "I need to go," he said abruptly. "Let me guess," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "Rachel's wondering where you are." His eyes snapped back to mine, and for a fleeting moment, the mask fell completely. What I saw chilled me to the core, a cold, calculating resolve that made it clear he was playing a much longer game. "This isn't over, Linda," he said, his voice low and menacing. "You may think you've won, but Rachel is my wife. When it comes down to it, who do you think she'll choose? You or me?" The threat hung in the air, raw and ugly, and I felt a surge of protective anger rise in my chest. Robert took a step toward him, his fists clenched, but I placed a hand on his arm, grounding him. "I think," I said carefully, my voice steady despite the storm inside, "that you're underestimating Rachel. And that's the biggest mistake you've made yet." Without another word, Alex turned and left, the door closing with a finality that echoed through the room. Robert and I stood in silence, the weight of the confrontation settling over us. "He's going to try to turn her against us," Robert said finally, his voice heavy with dread. I nodded, fighting the nausea that rose in my throat. "I know." My mind raced, grappling with the fear that Alex's manipulation might succeed. "What do we do?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Robert moved to the window, watching Alex's car pull away from our home. "We trust Rachel," he said, his tone resolute but laced with worry. "We make sure she has all the information she needs to make her own decision. And if she chooses him?" The question slipped out, raw and vulnerable, voicing the fear we both carried. Robert turned to face me, his eyes reflecting the same love and resilience that had carried us through 30 years of challenges. "Then we wait," he said softly. "We're there when she needs us. Because she will, Linda. Sooner or later, she will." The next morning, my phone lit up with a text from Rachel. "Can we talk? Just us. No Alex, no Dad." Relief flooded through me, tempered by the weight of what was to come. "Of course," I replied. "Name the time and place." She suggested the Denver Botanic Gardens, a neutral space where the quiet beauty of nature might soften the edges of our difficult conversation. We agreed to meet at 10 o'clock. The gardens were serene that weekday morning, the early spring blooms just beginning to peek through the soil. Rachel was already there, sitting on a bench near the Japanese garden, her posture stiff, her eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the overcast sky. I sat beside her, resisting the urge to reach for her hand, sensing she needed space. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, my voice gentle but steady. She nodded curtly, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I have questions." "I'll answer them all," I promised, meaning every word. Completely honestly. She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "Did Alex come to see you last night?" The question caught me off guard, but I answered carefully. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice was sharp, tinged with betrayal. "I thought he would," I said, choosing my words with care. "I didn't want to overstep." She removed her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and unshed tears. "He didn't," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I found out because I checked his location when he didn't come home on time. He's been doing that a lot lately, disappearing for hours without explaining where he's been." I stayed silent, giving her space to process her thoughts. She continued, her voice growing steadier but laced with bitterness. "When I confronted him, he said he was trying to smooth things over with you to help me because I was so upset." She let out a hollow laugh. "I'm always the hero in his own story." "Rachel," I began, but she cut me off. "No, let me finish. After he fed me that version, I called Dad. He told me what really happened, how Alex was trying to claw his way back into control without even telling me." I nodded slowly. "That's accurate." Well, she looked down at her hands, twisting nervously in her lap. "I need to see the evidence you mentioned. All of it. The financial mismanagement, the things he said, everything." I reached into my bag and handed her a USB drive. "It's all here," I said. "Financial reports, discrepancies, recordings from the dinner party, texts between Alex and his executives about inflating projections to mislead investors. Victor's been documenting everything for months." Rachel took the drive, holding it as if it might burn her. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" before it got to this point? The question hit me like a punch to the chest. I was trying to protect you, I admitted, my voice thick with regret. And honestly, I kept hoping I was wrong about him, that he'd grow into the man you deserved. That wasn't your decision to make, she said, her anger flaring. I'm not a child. You're right, I said, meeting her gaze. I should have trusted you with the truth from the start. I'm sorry. My apology seemed to catch her off guard, softening the edges of her anger. But you're not sorry about taking control of Elevate, she said. More a statement than a question. No, I said honestly, the company needed intervention. Alex was making choices that could have destroyed everything you've both worked for. My only regret in not bringing you into the loop sooner. Rachel stared out at the meticulously sculpted garden, her profile so much like mine at her age. The same determined chin, the same thoughtful crease between her brows. There's something else you should know, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Something I haven't told anyone. I waited, giving her the space she needed. I found messages on Alex's phone, she continued, her voice trembling. Between him and his ex-girlfriend, Kristen. They've been meeting for coffee, lunch. The texts are not outright romantic, but they're intimate, personal in a way that crosses lines. My heart sank heavy with the weight of her pain. I'm so sorry, Rachel. She shook her head, her voice steadying. I confronted him about it last week. That's when he suggested we needed space from you and Dad, said you were too involved in our lives, that we needed boundaries to work on our marriage. The manipulation was so blatant it made my blood boil, but I kept my expression neutral. What did you think about that? I thought it made sense, she admitted, shame creeping into her voice. I was hurt, confused. He made it seem like focusing on us, away from you, was the mature thing to do. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at me. How did I not see what he was doing? Because you trusted him, I said gently, as you should be able to trust your husband. She wiped at her eyes, her movements sharp with anger. I feel so stupid. No, I said firmly, reaching for her hand. Never that. You loved him. You wanted to believe the best in him. That's not stupidity, Rachel. That's being human. A heavy silence settled between us, broken only by the soft trickle of water in the nearby stream. What happens now? She asked finally, her voice small but resolute. With Elevate? With everything? That depends partly on you, I said carefully. The company changes are already in motion. Victor's taken over as CEO. Alex remains in charge of innovation and product development. Financially, everything's stable. And personally, she pressed, what happens with Alex and me? I took a deep breath, choosing my words with care. That's your decision, sweetheart. I can show you the evidence, tell you what I've observed, but only you can decide what it means for your marriage. Rachel nodded, turning the USB drive over in her hands. I need time to look through this, to think. Take all the time you need, I assured her. Your father and I are here, whatever you decide. She looked up at me, vulnerability etched across her face. Even if I stay with him? The question pierced my heart, but I didn't hesitate. Even then, we love you, Rachel, unconditionally. For the first time that day, she reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. Thank you, Mom. As we sat together in the quiet garden, I felt a shift, a fragile but undeniable step toward rebuilding the trust we'd lost. Whatever lay ahead would be painful, messy, but in that moment, we were together, and that was enough. 3 days passed with only a brief text from Rachel, letting us know she was staying with her friend Jessica while she processed everything. I respected her need for space, though every instinct screamed to rush to her side, to shield her from the pain I knew she was facing. At Elevate, Victor's leadership was already stabilizing the company with proper financial controls in place. Alex, according to Victor's reports, was barely showing up, doing just enough to maintain his role while clearly plotting his next move. On the 4th day, Rachel called. Can I come over tonight? Both of you need to hear this. The hours until her arrival stretched endlessly. Robert paced the living room, rearranging books that didn't need rearranging, while I poured my nervous energy into cooking Rachel's favorite meal, my grandmother's chicken piccata, roasted vegetables, and homemade tiramisu. Do you think she's leaving him? Robert asked, watching me whisk the sauce with more force than necessary. I think she's made a decision, I said carefully. Beyond that, I'm not assuming anything. He came up behind me, gently stilling my hands. Whatever happens, we support her. I nodded, leaning into his steady presence. Whatever happens. Rachel arrived at 7:00, looking exhausted but somehow lighter, as if a weight had begun to lift. She accepted our hugs, inhaling the aroma of the meal with a faint smile. You made Nana's chicken. Seemed like the right night for comfort food, I said, trying to keep the mood light. We kept the conversation casual through the first course, but halfway through the main dish, Rachel set down her fork and looked at us. I've made some decisions, she said quietly. About Alex, about everything. Robert and I exchanged a glance, giving her our full attention. I went through all the evidence, she began, the financial reports, the recordings, everything, and I had a long conversation with Victor yesterday. I raised an eyebrow, surprised. Victor hadn't mentioned meeting with her. I asked him not to tell you, she said, noting my reaction. I needed his perspective without it being filtered through family concerns. I nodded, respecting her thoroughness. What did you find? The picture isn't good, she said, her voice steady but heavy. Alex has been misrepresenting the company's position, taking credit for other people's work, and using company funds for personal expenses, including his meetings with Kristen. My heart sank at the mention of his ex-girlfriend. Beyond that, Rachel continued, her voice growing stronger, I've been looking at our relationship, the patterns of control, the subtle ways he's isolated me, the double standards. They were always there, but I excused them because I wanted our marriage to work. Robert reached across the table, covering her hand with his. That's natural, sweetheart. She gave him a grateful smile before continuing. 2 nights ago, I went back to our apartment to get clothes. Alex was there with Kristen. They didn't see me. I used my key and overheard them in the living room. He was telling her he had a plan to regain control of the company, that once he did, they could be together openly. My breath caught, the depth of his betrayal hitting like a physical blow. I recorded it, Rachel said, her voice eerily calm. Added it to your evidence. Oh, Rachel, I breathed. I'm so sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. It was the clarity I needed. She straightened, her shoulders squaring with resolve. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. A relief and sadness washed over me in equal measure. Relief that she was breaking free. Sadness that she had to endure such betrayal. I've also decided to resign from my marketing firm, she added, catching us both off guard. Sweetheart, is that necessary? Robert asked gently. Your career shouldn't suffer because of Alex. It's not just because of Alex, she clarified. The firm represents Elevate clients, which would create conflicts during the divorce. But more than that, I want to work at Elevate. I blinked, unsure I'd heard correctly. You want to work at Elevate? She nodded firmly. As Chief Marketing Officer, I've already discussed it with Victor. The company needs someone who understands both the technology and the market. Someone who can translate Alex's innovations into something clients can grasp. And Victor agreed to this? I asked, still processing. Contingent on your approval, says the primary investor, she said. He thinks it's a brilliant solution. Keeps the vision in the family while adding real expertise to the team. I studied her face, seeing the determined set of her jaw, the clarity in her eyes that had been absent for too long. You're sure about this? Working with Alex, even during a divorce? Alex won't stay, she said with a quiet certainty. Not once the divorce proceedings start. His pride won't let him. He'll cash out his equity and move on to his next scheme, with or without Kristen. Victor and I are already preparing for that. The confidence in her voice, the strategic thinking. It was the Rachel I'd always known, the one who'd been slowly eroded by Alex's influence. Then I think it's an excellent idea, I said finally, if it's truly what you want. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. It is. For the first time in a long time, I'm making decisions for me, not because of someone else's expectations. We raised our glasses in a silent toast, the weight of recent days lifting slightly in the face of her renewed strength. Later, as we moved to the living room with dessert, Rachel spoke again, her voice soft but steady. I know now why you did what you did. with Elevate, with the anonymous investment. You saw what I couldn't. I shook my head. I made mistakes too, Rachel. I should have been more transparent with you. Maybe, she conceded, but your instincts were right. You saved the company and me. She paused, looking between Robert and me. I'm sorry for shutting you out, for letting him come between us. You have nothing to apologize for, Robert insisted. Rachel smiled sadly. Yes, I do. I chose him over you, even if only for a while. I doubted myself for that. Don't, I said firmly. You were loyal to your husband. That's not a flaw, Rachel. It's a strength, even if it was misplaced here. She nodded, absorbing my words. The divorce won't be easy. Alex won't give up without a fight. But I'm ready. As we sat together, the warmth of our shared history anchoring us, I knew the road ahead would be challenging. But Rachel's resolve, her rediscovered strength, gave me hope. Whatever came next, we would face it as a family, united, unbreakable, and ready for whatever Alex might throw our way. The moment Rachel announced she was joining Elevate, a wave of emotions crashed over me. Pride, relief, and a pang of worry for what lay ahead. Robert, my steadfast husband, stood by her side, his voice warm and unwavering as he promised, "We'll be with you every step of the way, Rachel, whatever you need." His words carried the weight of a father's love, a vow to protect and support her through the storm she was navigating. Rachel hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering with vulnerability. Before she spoke softly, "Actually, I was wondering if I could stay here for a while, just until I find my own place." That simple request, so practical yet so heavy with unspoken pain, struck me like a quiet thunderbolt. My throat tightened, and tears welled in my eyes as I realized how much courage it took for her to ask for this small refuge. "Of course you can," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "This is your home, Rachel. It always has been." The words felt like a lifeline, tethering her to the safety of the family she'd always known, even as her world unraveled. As the evening unfolded, I found myself watching Rachel closely, my heart swelling with a mix of awe and sorrow. She sat across from Robert, her head tilted with that familiar confidence, as she dove into discussions about business strategy, her voice steady and sharp. Her hands danced through the air, punctuating her marketing ideas with animated gestures that spoke of her passion and brilliance. But every so often, a shadow would cross her face, a fleeting wince, a tightening of her jaw, when a memory of betrayal surfaced, unbidden. She was wounded, yes, but not broken. The pain of Alex's deception had carved new lines of wisdom into her, but it hadn't dimmed the fire at her core. She was still Rachel, resilient, radiant, and unyielding. When she finally retreated to her childhood bedroom upstairs, the one that still held echoes of her teenage dreams, Robert turned to me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She's going to be okay," he said, his voice thick with conviction. I leaned into his embrace, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. "Better than okay," I whispered, my heart swelling with certainty. "She's going to be magnificent." In that quiet moment, despite the challenges looming on the horizon, I knew it was true. Rachel was reclaiming her strength, and nothing, not even Alex's lies, could dim her light. The morning of Rachel's first official day at Elevate had arrived like a promise, the Colorado sun casting golden rays across the mountains, illuminating the world with a clarity that felt almost prophetic. I found her in the kitchen before dawn, already dressed in a tailored navy suit that spoke of her determination to step into this new chapter with authority. Papers were spread across the table, her focus laser sharp as she reviewed documents, a mug of coffee steaming untouched beside her. "Nervous?" I asked, pouring my own cup, trying to keep my tone light despite the knot of anxiety in my chest. She looked up, her eyes gleaming with a mix of resolve and mischief. "Strategic," she corrected, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Alex doesn't know I'm joining the company today. Victor and I agreed to announce it at the all-hands meeting this morning." I raised an eyebrow, impressed by her foresight, but also wary of the storm this surprise might unleash. "How do you think he'll react?" I asked, stirring my coffee to mask my unease. "Publicly, he'll smile and welcome me aboard," she said, her voice steady but laced with a knowing edge. "Privately, he'll be furious, but he can't show it without revealing his true colors to the entire company." Her words were calculated, a chess move planned with precision, and I marveled at the strength she'd summoned in the face of such personal betrayal. 2 weeks had passed since Rachel made the decision to divorce Alex, a choice that had shattered the illusion of the life she'd built with him. The papers were filed, but the process was only just beginning, a slow unraveling of a marriage built on lies. As Rachel had predicted, Alex hadn't returned to the struggling farmhand grandparents he'd once described to us with such convincing humility. Instead, he'd moved into a sleek luxury condo, paid for by parents who, it turned out, were far from the financially strained couple he'd painted. Another lie in a tapestry of deception, Rachel had said bitterly when she uncovered the truth, her voice heavy with the weight of countless betrayals. The law firm sent over the financial disclosure forms for the divorce yesterday, she said now, closing her laptop with a decisive snap. Alex is fighting the prenup, claiming he signed it under duress. I snorted, unable to hide my disdain. That prenup was his idea. He practically bragged about how it protected his so-called intellectual assets from division in case of divorce. Rachel's lips curved into a wry smile, a flicker of her old fire returning. Funny how it's suddenly unfair now that it prevents him from claiming half my inheritance. Robert entered the kitchen, already dressed for his doctor's appointment, his presence a quiet anchor in the midst of our storm. Your husband has an interesting relationship with the truth, he said, his tone dry but laced with protective indignation. Soon-to-be ex-husband, Rachel corrected firmly, standing to plant a kiss on his cheek. How are you feeling today? Ready to argue with Dr. Matthews about your medication again? Her teasing was gentle, a reminder of the bond they shared, one forged through years of love and trust. Always ready, Robert replied with a cheerful grin, though I could see the worry in his eyes. Don't worry about me. Today is your day. Go shake up that company. Rachel's smile widened, and she gathered her things with a renewed sense of purpose. That's the plan, she said, her voice brimming with determination. As she headed for the door, I called after her, text me after the meeting. Promise, she replied, turning to flash me a grateful look. And Mom, thank you for everything. After she left, Robert and I moved to the patio with our coffee, a morning ritual that had become our sanctuary since his retirement. The garden was alive with early blooms, each petal a testament to his patient cultivation, and I felt a quiet pride in the life we'd built together. She's stronger than both of us, he observed, his voice soft with admiration. I nodded, watching a hummingbird dart between flowers, its wings a blur of resilience. She always has been. She just needed to remember it. My phone chimed with a message from Victor, Rachel's ally at Elevate. Ready for today? A is already in the office looking tense. I replied quickly, stay close to R. Document everything. The all-hands meeting was set for 9 o'clock a.m., and by 8:45 I was a bundle of nerves, unable to focus on the property proposals from my real estate team. My mind kept circling back to Rachel, to Elevate, to what Alex might do when cornered. At 9:30, my phone lit up with a text from Rachel. Done. Tell you everything tonight. Going into back-to-back meetings now. The brevity of her message left me hanging. No hint of how the announcement had gone. No clue about Alex's reaction. I sighed, setting my phone aside, recognizing that my daughter was setting boundaries, even with me. It was healthy, necessary, but maddening for a mother used to being her confidant. Robert's doctor appointment went as expected, a minor tweak to his heart medication, the usual warnings about stress, and his stubborn banter with the physician. By noon, we were back home, and I noticed 3 missed calls from Maggie Chen, my trusted colleague. Linda, finally, she said when I called back. Have you checked the business news today? My stomach dropped. No, why? Alex Parker just gave an interview to the Denver Business Journal. It's problematic. I closed my eyes, bracing myself. What did he say? Maggie's voice was grim. He's painting himself as the victim of a hostile takeover, claiming unnamed corporate raiders forced him out of leadership with underhanded tactics. He doesn't name you or Wilson Holdings specifically, but anyone in the Denver tech scene can read between the lines. White-hot anger surged through me. What about Rachel? Did he mention her? Not by name, Maggie said, but he alluded to family complications that he suggests were orchestrated to distract him while the company was taken over. I gripped the phone tighter, my fury boiling over. He was blaming his infidelity on us, twisting the narrative to make himself the martyr. Linda, we need to respond strategically, Maggie urged. This could affect investor confidence in Elevate. I'll draft a statement from Wilson Holdings affirming our confidence in the current leadership structure. Keep it professional, focused on the company's future. Already working on it, she assured me. And Linda, you might want to warn Rachel. The article mentions that Elevate will be announcing new executive leadership today. If Alex found out about her role before the meeting, the implication hung heavy between us. If Alex had known about Rachel's appointment, it could explain both the interview and the cryptic tone of her text. I tried calling Rachel, then Victor, but both went to voicemail. Finally, I dialed Elevate's main office. This is Linda Wilson. I need to speak with Victor Rodriguez immediately, I said, my voice tight with urgency. The receptionist was polite but firm. I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson, but Mr. Rodriguez is in meetings all day. Would you like to leave a message? Yes, tell him to call me as soon as possible regarding Alex Parker's interview. I paused, then added, and how's the mood there? We're all very excited about the announcement this morning, she said warmly. Mrs. Parker is going to be an amazing addition to the leadership team. I thanked her, a flicker of relief easing my tension. At least the staff was behind Rachel. Unable to reach anyone directly, I pulled up the Denver Business Journal website and found the article. The headline alone, Elevate Tech founder Alex Parker speaks out, innovation stifled by corporate politics, made my blood boil. The interview was a masterclass in manipulation, Alex casting himself as a visionary crushed by bureaucracy, a creative genius betrayed by risk-averse investors. He avoided direct accusations, but the subtext was clear. He was the victim, and we were the villains. The most infuriating part came near the end, where he hinted at family politics, clouding Elevate's leadership decisions, subtly framing Rachel's appointment as nepotism rather than merit. Robert read over my shoulder, his face darkening. He's laying the groundwork for a wrongful termination lawsuit, he said, his academic mind cutting through the rhetoric. He's setting up a narrative that he was pushed out for personal reasons, not professional ones. It won't hold up, I argued, my voice sharp with defiance. We have documentation of his financial mismanagement, the unauthorized expenses, the inflated projections. Courts look at patterns. Linda, he's establishing his version of events in the public record, Robert countered. If he creates enough doubt about the motivations behind his demotion, he didn't need to finish. I knew he was right. We had to get ahead of this. I'm calling our lawyer, I said, already dialing. The next few hours were a blur of phone calls, to our attorney, to Maggie about the statement, to board members to reassure them. Still no word from Rachel or Victor, both likely buried in meetings. It was nearly 5 p.m. when Victor finally called. Linda, sorry for the delay. It's been quite a day. I've seen the article, I said, cutting to the chase. How bad is it? Victor sighed. Internally, not as bad as it could be. Most of the team knows Alex's tactics. Rachel's announcement went surprisingly well. Her presentation on the marketing strategy was a hit, even with Alex's allies. Externally, we've had a few client calls asking for reassurance, but nothing we can't handle. Your statement helped, and Rachel's presence is providing continuity that clients find comforting. How did Alex react when Rachel was introduced as CMO? I asked, dreading the answer. Victor paused, and that pause said everything. He was blindsided, tried to keep it together during the meeting, but I could see the shock. Afterward, he cornered Rachel in her new office. I stepped in before it got too heated. What happened? I pressed, my heart pounding. System, pounding. He called her a traitor, Victor said, his voice heavy. Said she was sleeping with the enemy. When I intervened, he accused us of orchestrating his downfall together. A chill ran down my spine. Where is Rachel now? She left about 20 minutes ago, Victor replied. Said she needed some air and would see you at home. I thanked him and immediately texted Rachel. Heard about the confrontation. Are you okay? Where are you, Victor? Her response was quick. I'm fine. Needed to process. Having coffee with Jess. Home by 7. Relief flooded me, followed by a surge of pride. She wasn't running or hiding. She was leaning on her friend, balancing independence with connection. She was handling this with a strength I hadn't fully appreciated until now. When Rachel arrived home that evening, she looked exhausted but composed. She kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the couch beside me. "So," she said, her voice weary but steady, "that happened." I gave her space, sensing she needed to process before sharing. "The meeting went fine," she began after a moment. "I presented my credentials, my vision for Elevate's marketing strategy, and some immediate action items to boost market share. The team was receptive. They've been directionless on marketing for months." Her expression darkened. "And Alex?" He sat in the back, arms crossed, with that fake smile of his. "You know the one." I nodded, all pragmatic assistant, familiar with Alex's polished charm that never reached his eyes. "What did he do?" "After the meeting, he followed me to my office," she said, rubbing her temples as if the memory physically hurt. "Waited until we were alone, then let loose. Called me a traitor, said I was betraying him, our marriage." Her voice wavered slightly, and my heart ached for her. Victor stepped in just as it was getting intense. "Thank God for Victor," I said, echoing her earlier sentiment. "He's a good man," she agreed, a faint smile breaking through. "He made an excuse about a client call and got me out of there." "Did Alex mention the interview?" I asked, my stomach twisting at the thought of his public smear campaign. Rachel's laugh was bitter. "Oh, he made sure I knew about his Denver Business Journal exclusive. Said it was just the beginning, that he'd make sure everyone knew the truth about how he'd been treated." "His version of the truth," Robert had interjected from the kitchen doorway, holding a glass of wine for Rachel, "where he's the brilliant victim and we're the villainous family destroying his dream." She took the glass with a grateful nod. "Exactly. Oh, and he's hired Patricia Lawson as his divorce attorney." Robert and I exchanged a glance. Patricia Lawson was notorious for her ruthless tactics in Denver's legal circles. "He's trying to intimidate you," I said, my voice firm to mask my own unease. "Succeeding a little," Rachel admitted, her vulnerability piercing my heart. "But mostly I'm just sad. Sad that it's come to this. Sad that the man I married was never real." Her eyes shone with determination. "But I won't let him win. Not in court, not at Elevate." "That's my girl," Robert said softly, his pride unmistakable. After dinner, Rachel retreated to her room to prepare for the next day, while Robert and I lingered at the table, our voices low. "He's escalating faster than I expected," I confessed. "I thought he'd keep up the facade longer, at least publicly." Robert shook his head, his academic mind already analyzing. "His pride can't take it. Being demoted was bad enough, but Rachel joining Elevate, in his mind, that's a personal betrayal, an unforgivable humiliation." "What do you think he'll do next?" I asked, the question gnawing at me. "Something desperate," Robert said, his tone measured but grim. "He's losing control of the narrative and people are starting to see through him. He'll need to regain the upper hand." Should we be worried about Rachel's safety? The thought had been festering all day, and saying it aloud made it feel too real. Robert considered this carefully. "I don't think he's physically dangerous. His weapon is manipulation, not violence. But we should stay vigilant." I nodded, mentally noting to discuss security with Victor. The next morning, Rachel seemed more focused. Her resolve hardened. She left early, promising to check in throughout the day. I tried to return to my routine: property inspections, investor calls, a lunch with Maggie to strategize about Elevate, but anxiety shadowed every moment. Just after 3 p.m., my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Linda Wilson?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. Who's calling?" "Carmen Diaz, Denver Post. I'm working on a story of allegations against Wilson Holdings regarding predatory investment practices targeting family businesses. I'd like your comment." My blood ran cold. "What allegations?" "We've received documents suggesting Wilson Holdings, under your direction, has a pattern of investing in businesses to take control, particularly those run by family or associates." I forced calm into my voice. "Those allegations are baseless. Wilson Holdings upholds the highest ethical standards in all investments." "So you deny secretly funding your son-in-law's company only to demote him and install your daughter in a leadership role during divorce proceedings? The question's framing screamed Alex's influence. This involves ongoing legal proceedings, so my comments are limited, I said icily. But Wilson Holdings' investment in Elevate was at the request of my daughter and then son-in-law when other investors declined. Leadership changes were due to documented financial mismanagement, not personal motives. Would you share that documentation? Diaz pressed. Not at this time, as it may be relevant to litigation. But I suggest you verify your sources carefully. False allegations like these could constitute defamation. Her tone shifted, a hint of caution. We always verify sources, Ms. Wilson, but it's realistic that you'd mention litigation so quickly. It's realistic when false narratives are being spread. I shot back, my voice like steel. I hung up, my heart racing. Alex was waging war through the media, twisting Rachel's triumph into a scandal. But Rachel was stronger than he knew, and we were ready to fight back, strategically, fiercely, and together. The phone call ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. My heart raced as I dialed Matthew Greenberg, our trusted attorney, to brace him for the storm brewing on the horizon. The reporter's inquiry had been sharp, probing, hinting at a story that could unravel everything we'd built. Matthew's calm professionalism steadied me, but only slightly. Next, I called Victor, Elevate's PR lead, to ensure his team was ready to counter whatever was coming. Then I reached out to Rachel, my daughter, whose voice carried a mix of resolve and dread when I told her about the call. "He's going nuclear," Rachel said, her words laced with weary certainty. The Denver Post's reach dwarfed the business journals, and she knew it. Alex, her ex-husband, was escalating his vendetta, and the implications were chilling. I tried to soothe her, insisting his accusations wouldn't withstand scrutiny. "Maybe not in court," she countered, her voice heavy with resignation. "But public opinion doesn't care about legalities." Her sigh carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much betrayal too soon. She promised to have Elevate's PR team draft a statement highlighting her qualifications and the legitimate reasons behind the leadership shakeup. I nodded, though she couldn't see me, and added, "Rachel, be careful. If he's willing to go this far in public—" My words trailed off, fear tightening my throat. "I know," she replied softly. "Jessica's staying with me tonight." Her decision to stay at her own place caught me off guard. I'd expected her to come home after work, to the safety of our family's embrace. "I thought," I began, but she cut in gently, explaining she needed to finalize the marketing plan from her home office. Then, with a vulnerability that pierced my heart, she admitted, "I think I need a little more independence right now." The words stung, not because they were unkind, but because they were true. Rachel, in her 30s, was navigating a brutal divorce and a high-stakes role at Elevate. Living with her parents, even briefly, must have felt like a surrender to circumstances she was determined to overcome. I swallowed my hurt, keeping my voice steady. "Of course, let me know if you need anything." Hanging up, I wandered into Robert's study, where he sat surrounded by towering bookshelves, the quiet sanctuary of his academic life. The scent of old paper and leather bindings grounded me as I shared Rachel's plans. "She's staying at her place with Jessica," I said. Robert nodded, his eyes soft with understanding. "She's reclaiming her space," he observed. "That's good." I agreed, but my voice betrayed my worry. Robert set his book aside, his gaze piercing. "Are you worried about Alex, her safety, or losing her again?" His question cut through my defenses, exposing the tangle of fears I hadn't dared name. "All of it," I admitted, sinking onto the couch beside him. He took my hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "Linda, you've always been a fighter. It's what I love about you, but sometimes fighting isn't the answer." I looked at him, desperate for guidance. "Then what is?" His answer was simple, yet profound. Trust. Trust in Rachel's strength, in the foundation we gave her, in the truth prevailing, no matter what Alex throws at us. I leaned against him, drawing comfort from his quiet wisdom. "When did you get so wise?" I teased, a small smile breaking through. 30 years of literature," he replied, his eyes crinkling. "Every human drama has been written before." That evening, a teaser for the Denver Post article appeared online, a vague but ominous hint at corporate misconduct tied to a family-connected tech startup. No names were mentioned, but anyone in Denver's business circles could connect the dots. I spent an hour on the phone with Matthew, dissecting our legal options. His advice was cautious. Wait for the full article, evaluate the claims, then decide whether to demand a retraction or escalate. The truth is on your side, bowed Linda, he reminded me. Alex's financial mismanagement, the board's testimony, Rachel's hiring, it's all documented. But I knew perception could be as damaging as reality, especially for Elevate, a company in its critical growth phase. He's counting on that, Matthew noted. He wants to force a settlement, restore his position, or walk away with more than he deserves. We just need to weather the storm. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios and contingency plans. By morning, the full article was online. Family feud or corporate coup inside the battle for Elevate Tech. To my relief, it was more balanced than I'd feared. Alex's claims of predatory investment practices were countered by the board's defense of the leadership change as a necessary move to stabilize the company. Rachel's role as CMO was mentioned, her marketing expertise briefly showcased in a way that bolstered her credibility. Most crucially, the reporter had verified key details, noting that Alex's claim of being blindsided by the investment source was undermined by signed funding agreements naming Wilson Holdings' subsidiaries. I called Rachel immediately. "Have you seen it?" I asked. "Reading it now," she replied, her voice calm but tinged with relief. "It's not as bad as we thought." I agreed, the knot in my chest loosening slightly. The reporter did her homework. Rachel's tone sharpened with grim satisfaction. "Alex will be furious. He's not the innocent victim he wanted to be." A text from Victor confirmed her assessment. Alex's mood was apocalyptic, and security was on high alert. Hesitating, I voiced the fear gnawing at me. "Rachel, do you feel safe there today, with him like this?" She reassured me, explaining Victor had arranged for a security guard to linger near her office, and the bustling office environment made a public scene unlikely. "Promise you'll call if anything feels off," I pressed. "Promise," she said. "Love you, Mom." The day blurred with activity, calls with Maggie about damage control, messages from acquaintances shocked to recognize our family in the article, and a long discussion with Matthew about next steps. My phone stayed close, my heart lurching with every notification. Around 3 p.m., Rachel texted. "Meeting with major client went well. They hadn't seen the article, too busy running their business to read gossip." Her subtle dig at Alex, who'd always prioritized image over substance, made me smile. An hour later, Victor called with troubling news. Alex had left early, claiming illness, but spent the morning holed up in his office, making calls and downloading large files to personal accounts. My stomach churned. "He's gathering company information," I said. Victor confirmed, noting it had restricted his access, but the breach was concerning. "Have you told Rachel?" I asked. He hadn't, not wanting to disrupt her meetings with speculation. "Tell her when she's free," I insisted. "She needs to know." Restless, I paced the patio, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. Robert watched from his garden chair, concern etched into his features. "What's on your mind?" he asked. "Alex is planning something bigger than bad press," I replied. "The article didn't go his way, so he's shifting tactics." Robert's academic mind kicked in, musing aloud. "If I were him, with my reputation tarnished and my company slipping away, I might start fresh. A new company, same industry, using Elevate's clients and tech." The theory snapped into place with chilling clarity. "He's preparing to launch a competitor," I said, "using proprietary information." Robert nodded. "It's illegal, non-compete clauses, intellectual property theft. But when has legality stopped Alex?" I called Victor back, sharing the theory. His silence spoke volumes. "I'll have audit his access history and review his non-compete clause," he promised. By evening, Rachel called with more bad news. "Victor told me your theory," she said. "It fits. 2 of Alex's closest allies on the dev team quit today, effective immediately." My heart sank. "They're joining him," I concluded. "Almost certainly," she agreed. "They know our core tech inside out." The betrayal stung, though I reminded myself this was business. Ruthless, but business. What can we do? I asked. Rachel's response was measured, strategic. Legally, we send cease and desist letters and prepare for litigation. Practically, we accelerate our timeline, strengthen client relationships, and brace for competition we didn't expect so soon. Her composure filled me with pride. This was the Rachel I'd raised, resilient, focused, undaunted. She added, Victor and I are working late at my place with Jessica. We've turned the dining room into a war room. We'll be fine, Mom. Her reassurance eased my immediate fears, though the broader threat loomed. Keep me updated, I urged. Try not to worry too much, she replied. I learned from the best. I relayed the conversation to Robert, who smiled faintly. She sounds like you, facing a crisis head-on, already solving it while others are still reeling. I sank beside him, exhausted. I just wish she didn't have to face this at all. The divorce, the company drama, Alex's betrayal. It's too much. Robert's voice was gentle but firm. Yet she's handling it with grace and strength that astounds me. His words echoed my mother's long-ago advice. Strength is only discovered in the face of overwhelming odds. I hadn't wanted Rachel to need that lesson, but her resilience was undeniable. The next morning brought a deceptive calm, like the eye of a hurricane. I was sipping coffee when Rachel called, her voice tight. Mom, you need to see this email. I'm forwarding it now. Seconds later it arrived. A 5-page manifesto from Alex to Elevate's staff, board, and clients titled The Truth About Elevate's Hostile Takeover. He painted himself as a betrayed visionary, accused Victor of conspiring with me, claimed Rachel was manipulated, and included out-of-context board discussion snippets that seemed to back his narrative. My blood ran cold. How did he get board recordings? I asked as Rachel arrived at our house, her face flushed with anger but her demeanor steady. That's what I want to know, she said, pacing the living room. Access is restricted to board members and legal counsel. Robert, reading the email, looked up. Could he have planted recording devices? Rachel shook her head. Unlikely. It sweeps regularly. Then someone gave him access, I concluded. Victor arrived, his usual calm fraying. We have a mole, he said. I think it's James Thornton, our CFO. He's Alex's old friend and he's been unreachable today. Rachel's eyes widened. The financial data in the email, budget figures, projections, it had to come from James. I handed out coffee, trying to anchor us in the chaos. What's our immediate response? I asked. Victor outlined legal steps, a cease and desist letter and a rebuttal for the board and clients. But public strategy was undecided. Rachel suggested transparency, a detailed timeline backed by facts, presented without emotion. Alex thrives on conspiracies, she said. Straightforward truth is our best counter. I studied her, pride swelling. You should deliver it, I said. As CMO, you're the most credible voice. She hesitated, fearing Alex's manipulation claims, but Robert's firm led him, bolstered her resolve. Victor's phone buzzed. The board meeting was moved up. The next 2 hours were a blur. Rachel and Victor prepared their presentation. I reassured investors, and Robert dissected Alex's email for inconsistencies. By the time they left, we had a plan to not just survive, but thrive. Call me after, I urged, hugging Rachel. We've got this, Mom, she said, her determined eyes. The truth is on our side. Waiting was agony. I buried myself in work, but my thoughts stayed with Rachel. At 2 p.m., she called, exhausted but victorious. The board's 100% behind us, she said. Relief flooded me, though I knew the storm wasn't over. Alex's next move was coming, but for now, we stood united, armed with truth and resilience. Victor leaned forward, his voice low but insistent, urging me to lay out every detail of the unfolding crisis at Elevate Technologies. His eyes, sharp with focus, betrayed a mix of concern and determination, as if he could already sense the weight of what I was about to reveal. I began with the financial evidence, meticulously compiled documents that painted a damning picture of Alex's reckless mismanagement. Unauthorized expenses, inflated revenue projections, and a trail of questionable decisions stood starkly exposed in the spreadsheets and ledgers I presented. Each figure told a story of betrayal, not just of the company, but of the trust placed in him by everyone involved, especially Rachel. As I walked the board through the timeline, From the initial investment that had sparked such hope to the abrupt leadership change that followed Alex's unraveling, I could feel the room grow heavier. Every email, every memo I shared was a thread in the tapestry of his deceit. The board members listened intently, their faces a mix of shock and grim acceptance. Rachel, sitting beside me, nodded subtly, her expression a blend of exhaustion and resolve. She had believed in Alex once, poured her heart into Elevate alongside him, and now she was witnessing the dismantling of that dream. When she spoke up to confirm that the board had indeed taken our evidence seriously, her voice carried a quiet strength, though I could hear the undercurrent of pain beneath it. The turning point came when James Thornton, the former CFO, called into the meeting. His voice crackled through the speaker, hesitant at first, then spilling into a confession that sent a ripple of tension through the room. Alex had coerced him, he admitted, leveraging James's hidden gambling debts to extract confidential company information. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I shook my head, a wave of disgust washing over me, not entirely unexpected, but no less repulsive for its familiarity. Alex had always had a knack for exploiting weaknesses, but blackmailing his own CFO? It was a new low, even for him. Rachel's eyes met mine briefly, and I saw the flicker of betrayal she was trying so hard to suppress. Former CFO, she corrected softly, her voice steady but laced with a quiet fury. James had resigned immediately, and the board, in a rare show of decisiveness, had accepted it on the condition that he fully cooperate with the investigation into the leaked information. The weight of that decision hung in the air. Another casualty of Alex's ambition, another life upended by his schemes. Then there was the matter of Alex's email, the one that had sent shockwaves through Elevate's client base, sowing doubt and damaging relationships that had taken years to build. Rachel leaned forward, her tone shifting to one of cautious optimism. "That's where I step in," she said, and I could hear the faint smile in her voice, a spark of defiance amidst the chaos. The board had entrusted her with leading a comprehensive communication strategy, full transparency with clients, personal phone calls to each one, and a carefully crafted public statement to address the crisis head-on. I couldn't help but admire her resilience. It was a daunting task, a tightrope walk over a chasm of corporate fallout, but she saw it not just as a burden, but as a chance to redefine Elevate's future. "That's a lot to take on," I said, my voice tinged with both pride and concern. Rachel nodded, her expression softening for a moment. "It is, but it's also an opportunity to set things right, to show our clients who we really are." Victor chimed in, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Crises like these, if handled well, can open doors to real change." I found myself nodding, my mind drifting to my own past. Some of my greatest business successes had been born in the crucible of challenge. Moments when everything seemed lost, but resolve and strategy turned the tide. "What's next?" I asked, eager to keep the momentum moving forward. Victor glanced at Rachel before answering. "We're heading back to Elevate now to brief the executive team. Then Rachel starts the client calls. It's going to be a long day." I hesitated, then asked, "Will you be home for dinner?" The moment the words left my mouth, I cringed at their maternal tone. Rachel was no longer the teenager who needed reminding of curfews. She was a woman navigating a corporate storm with a grace I envied. To my relief, she laughed, a sound that carried both warmth and weariness. "Probably not. We'll be working late, but I'll swing by tomorrow morning for breakfast if that's okay." I smiled, picturing Robert at the stove, flipping his famous blueberry pancakes. "Your father will have them ready," I promised. After we hung up, I relayed the conversation to Robert, who sat across from me at the kitchen table, his brow furrowed but his eyes reflecting the same cautious relief I felt. "One crisis navigated," he said, his voice steady but tinged with unease. "But I doubt Alex is done." His words lingered, heavy with foreboding, and they proved truer than either of us could have anticipated. Just after 4 p.m., the doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected. Robert opened the door to find Patricia Lawson, Alex's divorce attorney, standing on our porch. Her posture was rigid, her legal briefcase clutched tightly, and her expression was one of calculated calm. "Mrs. Wilson," she said, her voice cool and professional, "I need to discuss the Wilson Holdings investment in Elevate Technologies." I stepped forward, my heart sinking, but my resolve firm. Any legal matters regarding that investment should go through our corporate counsel. Her lips curved into a thin, almost predatory smile. This isn't just about the investment. It's about your interference in my client's marriage. Robert stiffened beside me, his usually calm demeanor cracking. That's an outrageous accusation, he said, his voice low but sharp. Patricia remained unruffled, her confidence unnerving. Is it? We have evidence suggesting Mrs. Wilson deliberately sowed discord between Mr. Parker and his wife using selectively edited conversations, manipulated financial records, and false accusations of infidelity. My shock must have been evident because her smile widened slightly, a flicker of triumph in her eyes. Yes, we're aware of the alleged affair Mrs. Parker believes occurred. My client denies any impropriety with Miss Kristen Wells, who was merely providing consulting services for Elevate's market expansion. The audacity of her claims stole my breath. Rachel had walked in on Alex and Kristen together in their apartment, had heard him whisper promises of a future together once he regained control of Elevate. The memory of Rachel's voice, trembling with hurt and fury as she recounted that moment, flooded back to me. I forced my voice to remain steady. Ms. Lawson, I'm not discussing my daughter's divorce on my doorstep. If you have legal documents to serve, do so. Otherwise, this conversation is over. Her expression hardened, and she reached into her briefcase, pulling out a thick envelope. This is a notice of intent to file a civil suit against Wilson Holdings, and you personally, Mrs. Wilson, for tortious interference in a marriage, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Robert took the envelope, his academic composure barely masking the anger simmering beneath. Our attorneys will review this and respond accordingly, he said coolly. Patricia's eyes narrowed. They should do so quickly. My client is prepared to make this very public, very quickly. After she left, I called our attorney, Matthew Greenberg, explaining the situation in a rush of indignation and worry. I arranged for a courier to pick up the documents, then tried Rachel's cell, only to reach her voicemail. I left a brief message, careful to keep my tone calm despite the storm brewing inside me. Robert pored over the documents while we waited for Matthew's assessment, his brow furrowed in concentration. This is a nuisance suit, he concluded, his voice firm. It's meant to intimidate and distract, not to win in court. I sighed, rubbing my temples. An expensive nuisance. Patricia Lawson's firm billed at rates that could bankrupt most people. Alex must have financial backing, Robert mused, his thoughts echoing my own. These fees aren't sustainable on his salary, especially given his spending habits. The implication was chilling. Either Alex had hidden resources or someone was funding his vendetta against us. Matthew called back within the hour, his tone brisk but reassuring. I've reviewed the complaint. It's aggressive but flimsy. They're alleging Linda deliberately interfered in the marriage with false information about Alex's business practices and personal conduct. I bristled. That's absurd. We have documentation of everything. Exactly, Matthew agreed, which is why this won't hold up in court. But that might not be the goal. This looks like a pressure tactic to force a settlement in both the divorce and the company restructuring. Robert leaned forward. What's our best response? A formal answer denying all allegations, Matthew replied. We'll prepare counter evidence and possibly a countersuit for defamation if they escalate publicly. After thanking Matthew, I tried Rachel again. This time she answered, her voice taut with the strain of a day spent in crisis mode. Mom, I'm in the middle of client calls. Can this wait? I'm afraid not, I said, hating to add to her burden. Alex's attorney just served us with a lawsuit. They're claiming I interfered in your marriage with false information. There was a long pause, and when Rachel spoke again, her voice was cold, controlled, a razor's edge of anger. That son of a... They also implied Kristen was just a business consultant, that there was no affair. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Next, they'll say I imagined walking in on them in our apartment. Matthew says it's a pressure tactic, unlikely to succeed but designed to cause stress and distraction, I told her. Rachel's tone shifted, resolute. I need to call my attorney. Victor should know about this too. It'll affect Elevate. I hesitated, guilt gnawing my... I'm sorry to add to your burden today. Don't apologize, she said firmly. Alex is the one who should be sorry, and he will be when this is over. Her determination steadied me, a reminder of the strength she'd always carried, even when I worried she might falter. That evening, Robert and I sat at the dinner table, our meal barely touched, the weight of the day pressing down on us. The silence between us was heavy, filled with unspoken worries about Rachel and anger at Alex's escalating tactics. We should call her again, I said, pushing my plate aside. Make sure she's okay. Robert placed his hand over mine, his touch grounding. She's working late. Let's trust her to reach out if she needs us. I nodded reluctantly, knowing he was right, but hating the helplessness that came with stepping back. Just after 9 p.m., the doorbell rang, startling us both. Robert opened the door to reveal Victor Rodriguez, his face a mix of triumph and exhaustion. Sorry for the late visit, he said as we ushered him inside, but I thought you'd want to hear this in person. My heart leapt with worry. Where's Rachel? Still at the office, finalizing client communications, Victor replied, setting his laptop on the dining table. She sends her love. We've had a breakthrough, one that changes everything. Robert brought coffee while Victor opened his computer, his movements quick but deliberate. After we learned about the lawsuit against you, Rachel and I dug deeper into Alex's finances. Something wasn't adding up about his ability to afford Patricia Lawson's services given his spending habits. I nodded, my earlier suspicions resurfacing. We thought the same, someone's backing him. Victor's eyes gleamed with the thrill of discovery. Exactly. So we followed the money. He turned the laptop toward us, revealing a series of recovered emails from James Thornton's account. The messages weren't just about leaking information. They outlined a far larger plan. Alex had been in secret talks with Meridian Ventures, a direct competitor, for months. The emails detailed his offer to deliver Elevate's proprietary technology, client lists, and a team of key developers in exchange for a lucrative position at Meridian. Robert leaned forward, his eyes scanning the screen. These emails predate his demotion. This wasn't retaliation. It was his plan all along. Victor nodded grimly. Alex knew his financial mismanagement would come to light. Instead of facing the consequences, he was orchestrating an exit strategy that would gut Elevate while securing his future. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. All those months Rachel had stood by him, defending his vision, believing in their shared dream, while he was plotting to dismantle it. What about Rachel? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Did he ever intend to include her? Victor's expression darkened. There's an email thread where your Meridian asked if his wife would join the transition team, given her marketing expertise. Alex replied that she wasn't part of the package, that their marriage was a convenience nearing its expiration date. My blood ran cold, the cruelty of his words cutting deeper than I'd expected. Rachel had given everything to him, and he'd dismissed her as disposable. Does Rachel know? Robert asked quietly. Victor nodded. She found the thread connecting Alex to Meridian. I've never seen her so calm, but it was a fury like I've never witnessed. She's unstoppable right now. I felt a swell of pride mixed with heartache. This is corporate espionage, I said, the full weight of it sinking in. Not just unethical, potentially criminal. Victor confirmed our legal team was already reviewing the evidence, but there was more. He scrolled to another email exchange, this one between Alex and Jeffrey Wells, Kristen's father and a major investor in Meridian Ventures. The pieces fell into place with devastating clarity. Alex's affair with Kristen wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was a calculated move to secure financial backing for his scheme. The lawsuit against you, Victor said, looking at me, is almost certainly funded by Wells through Meridian. It's not about winning. It's about destabilizing Elevate during a critical time, making it easier for Meridian to poach our clients and talent. I sat back, reeling from the layers of deception. What happens now? Victor's voice was steady, resolute. Rachel and our legal team are preparing a response. Cease and desist letters to Alex, Meridian, and Wells, with a warning that will turn over evidence of corporate espionage to prosecutors if they proceed with their claims. As for the divorce, Rachel's attorney will use these emails to counter any accusations of your interference. They prove Alex was planning to end the marriage as soon as it suited his career. Robert shook his head, his voice heavy with disbelief. All this time, we thought he was reacting to the leadership change, but he was planning his exit long before. Victor nodded. The leadership change just forced his hand, exposing his plans before he could execute them. The realization brought a strange sense of relief. We hadn't caused this betrayal. We'd only uncovered it in time to stop it. Victor closed his laptop, exhaustion creeping into his posture. I should get back to the office. Rachel asked me to update you, but there's still work to do tonight. I couldn't help myself. Is she really okay? A small smile crossed his face. She's more than okay, Linda. I've worked with many executives, but I've rarely seen someone handle a crisis with such clarity and strength. You raised an extraordinary woman. After Victor left, Robert and I sat at the dining table, the weight of the day settling over us like a fog. I can't believe the scale of it, I said finally, my voice trembling, the calculated cruelty of it all. Robert took my hand, his grip firm. I can. We always knew something was off about Alex. We just didn't want to see it for Rachel's sake. He paused, his expression darkening. What worries me now is how he'll react when he realizes his plans are exposed. I nodded, a chill running through me. Men like Alex, when cornered, become dangerous. But Robert's next words grounded me. Rachel is surrounded by people who care about her, who are watching out for her, and she's stronger than we sometimes give her credit for. I clung to that truth, trying to quell the mother's worry that gnawed at me. Rachel had resources, support, and now undeniable evidence of Alex's true nature. Still, I needed to hear her voice. I called her, and she answered on the second ring. Mom, I'm guessing Victor filled you in. He did, I said. Are you okay? A soft laugh came through the line, weary but resolute. Strangely, yes. There's something freeing about knowing the person you married is even worse than you feared. It erases all doubt, all second-guessing. You sound peaceful, I said, surprised. Not peaceful, she corrected. Focused. We have a clear path now. The evidence changes everything. Legally, professionally, personally. What can we do to help? I asked. Just be there, she said simply. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Meridian, the CEO, has agreed to a meeting in the morning. They're distancing themselves from Alex now that his methods are exposed. They claim they thought he was leaving Elevate amicably, bringing willing team members and shareable technology. I scoffed. They believe that? Or claim to, Rachel replied. Either way, they're always scrambling to avoid legal trouble. Victor thinks we can leverage this into a non-competition agreement, maybe even compensation for the attempted poaching. Her strategic clarity impressed me, especially given the personal pain she was navigating. And Alex? Her voice hardened. His access to Elevate is terminated. Security won't let him on the premises, his email is shut down, and his final paycheck is being processed. He won't go quietly, that's what I warned. I know, she said. That's why I'm staying at Jessica's tonight and have private security for the next few weeks until this is settled. The precaution both reassured and unsettled me. You think he might? Not physically dangerous, she clarified quickly, but he'll try to confront me, manipulate the situation. I'm not giving him the chance. Her foresight, her strength, filled me with pride. I'm so proud of you, I said softly. So proud of how you're handling this. I learned from the best, she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Now get some rest, Mom. Tomorrow's another day in the Alex Parker saga, and we all need our strength. After we hung up, I joined Robert in the living room, where he sat with one of his beloved classics, seeking solace in its pages. She's going to be okay, I told him, and for the first time that day, I believed it. Rachel wasn't just surviving, she was fighting, and she was winning. As I settled onto the plush cushions of the couch beside Robert, the weight of the day seemed to ease, if only slightly. The soft glow of the lamp cast a warm halo over him as he marked his place in the novel he'd been reading. His smile gentle but knowing. Of course she's okay, he said, his voice steady with conviction. She's your daughter. Those words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket, soothing the frayed edges of my heart. That night, for the first time in weeks, I sank into sleep with a peace I hadn't known since the storm of Alex's betrayal had begun. The fog of uncertainty that had clouded my mind for so long lifted, replaced by the sharp clarity of truth. Alex's duplicity had been laid bare, his carefully constructed facade shattered. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be challenges, no question, the truth was now our ally, a beacon to guide us through the turmoil. Morning broke with a burst of energy as if the world itself was eager to move forward. Rachel's text messages came in a rapid flurry, each one a piece of the puzzle falling into place. Meridian, the company Alex had aligned himself with, had agreed to full cooperation, handing over every email, every document, every damning piece of communication in exchange for immunity from legal repercussions. The board at Elevate had acted swiftly, unanimously voting to terminate Alex for cause, stripping him of his position and influence. Most shocking of all, Patricia Lawson, Alex's divorce attorney, had abruptly withdrawn from his case, citing irreconcilable differences over strategy. Rachel, when she arrived for breakfast as promised, put it bluntly, Patricia saw the evidence and realized she was on a sinking ship. She's jumping before it goes under. Rachel's voice carried a mix of exhaustion and fierce determination, her burgundy suit a bold contrast to the weariness in her eyes. The sharp lines of her outfit radiated confidence, a silent declaration that she was still standing, still fighting. Robert slid a plate of blueberry pancakes in front of her, the warm, sweet aroma filling the kitchen. "Eat," he said, his tone firm but kind. "Even corporate warriors need fuel." Rachel's grateful smile was a small victory, and as she dug into the meal with a hunger that spoke of sleepless nights and relentless focus, I felt a quiet reassurance settle over me. Between bites, she delivered more news. The lawsuit against me had been formally rescinded that morning. Relief crashed over me like a wave, loosening the knot of anxiety I'd carried for weeks. "That's wonderful," I breathed, the words barely capturing the depth of my gratitude. "It's just the beginning," Rachel promised, her voice steady with resolve. "By the end of the day, Alex will have no job, no lawyer, and no standing in Denver's tech scene. Word travels fast in this industry." Robert leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Have you heard from him directly?" A shadow flickered across Rachel's face, her vibrant energy dimming for a moment. 17 voicemails, she said, her tone clipped. Overnight. They started angry, turned to threats, and ended with him pleading. My stomach twisted at the thought of Alex's desperation, his voice clawing through the phone in a futile attempt to regain control. "You didn't pick up?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "No need," she replied, her calm almost unnerving. "Everything that needs to be said will go through attorneys now. My divorce lawyer has all the evidence, every email, including the ones where he called our marriage a convenience nearing its expiration date." The cruelty of those words hit me like a physical blow, their cold pragmatism slicing through the air. I could only imagine the pain Rachel must have felt reading them, the betrayal cutting deeper with every syllable. How had she carried that wound and still stood so strong? "What about his parents?" Robert asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. "Any interference from them?" Rachel's lips curved into a wry smile, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "Funny you should ask. Howard Parker sent me an email last night. Apparently, Alex spun them a completely different story about our separation. According to him, I was the one having an affair with Victor, of all people." I nearly choked on my coffee, the absurdity of the claim catching me off guard. "That's ridiculous," I said, shaking my head. "Completely," Rachel agreed, her voice steady but laced with a quiet fury. "But it worked for a while. His parents believed he was the victim. They'd been funding his apartment, his legal fees, even a new car." She paused, her expression softening into something almost triumphant. "Until now, I forwarded them the entire email thread, every word of his plan to discard me once Meridian hired him. Howard's response was illuminating. This isn't the first time Alex has lied to them for money." The conversation shifted to practical matters. Rachel's packed schedule, strategies to secure Elevate's intellectual property, plans to retain key clients Alex might have tried to poach. Through it all, I marveled at her composure, the way she focused on solutions rather than dwelling on the pain of betrayal. She was a force, her mind sharp and her heart resilient, even after everything she'd endured. As she prepared to leave, coffee in a travel mug and briefcase in hand, she paused at the door, her expression softening. "I've been thinking about something Alex said the first time I brought him home," she began, her voice thoughtful. I tilted my head, curious. "He told me later that he found you intimidating, said you had this old money arrogance because you weren't impressed by his grand talk about changing the world." A rueful smile tugged at her lips. "What he really meant was that you saw through him from the start. You saw what I couldn't. That substance matters more than style. That integrity isn't just a buzzword for corporate mission statements." Her words stirred something deep within me, a mix of pride and regret. "I wanted to be wrong about him," I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. "For your sake." Rachel's eyes softened and she stepped closer. "I know," she said quietly, "and I love you for that. But I'm glad you weren't wrong. I'm glad you were exactly who you have always been, someone who values truth over comfort, even when it's hard." She pulled me into a tight hug, her embrace fierce and grounding. When she stepped back, her determination was palpable. A fire reignited. "Now I have a company to rebuild and a future to reclaim. Wish me luck." I smiled, my heart swelling. "You don't need luck. You never have." As Robert and I watched her drive away, her car heading toward the gleaming towers of the Denver Tech Center, where Elevate's offices stood, a wave of pride washed over me, pure, untainted by the worry that had plagued me for months. "She's going to be more than okay," Robert said, his voice echoing my thoughts. "She's going to be extraordinary." In that moment, watching my daughter carve her path with strength and wisdom, I knew he was right. The storm wasn't over. Such storms rarely end cleanly. But Rachel had navigated its worst, emerging not just whole but transformed. The challenges ahead, rebuilding Elevate, finalizing the divorce, healing from betrayal, loomed large. But they were battles for tomorrow. Today it was enough to know the truth had prevailed, that the masks had fallen, and that Rachel was fully herself again. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from Rachel. "Forgot to mention, security sweep found listening devices in my office and the boardroom. Alex was spying on us for months. Perfect ammunition for a restraining order. We'll call later with updates." I showed the message to Robert, who shook his head in disgust. "Just when you think you've hit the bottom of his deceit, there's another layer." I nodded, my jaw tight. "But it doesn't matter anymore. Every new revelation only strengthens our position." Robert squeezed my hand, his grip steady and reassuring, "and weakens his. The truth has a way of compounding once it starts coming out." He was right. The full scope of Alex's deception, his manipulation, his corporate espionage, was still unfolding, each wave of evidence tightening the noose around him. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt unshakable certainty that we would weather whatever came next. Not because we were flawless, but because we had something Alex could never understand, the courage to face reality, no matter how painful. That, I realized, might be the greatest gift I'd given my daughter, not wealth or connections, but the strength to stand in the light of truth, even when it burned. 2 months later, summer draped Denver in golden warmth, the scent of blooming flowers drifting through Robert's garden. I sat on the patio, watching the sunset paint the mountains in hues of amber and violet, reflecting on how much had changed since that day I overheard Alex's cruel remark about my old people smell. Elevate hadn't just survived, it was thriving. Under Victor's steady leadership and Rachel's bold marketing vision, the company had secured 3 major clients and ventured into sustainable agriculture technology. The scandal Alex had hoped would ruin them had instead showcased Rachel's resilience, earning her respect across the industry. Denver's business community had rallied around Elevate, impressed by their transparency and strength in the face of betrayal. Alex, meanwhile, had fallen hard. The evidence of his attempted theft of intellectual property had made him untouchable in Denver's tight-knit tech scene. No reputable firm would go near him. His parents, once they saw the truth of his lies, had cut off their financial support, leaving him to fend for himself. The last we heard, he'd slunk off to Phoenix, trying to reinvent himself in a market that didn't yet know his true character. His divorce from Rachel had been finalized with surprising speed, the prenuptial agreement he had once insisted on becoming his downfall, leaving him with no claim to her assets or Elevate's success. Poetic justice, Robert had called it, and I couldn't disagree. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my reverie. I smiled, knowing it was Rachel. Our Thursday evening dinners had become a cherished ritual, born from the ashes of crisis, a deliberate choice to rebuild the family bonds Alex had tried to sever. I opened the door to find her standing there, but she wasn't alone. Victor Rodriguez stood beside her, his usual professional composure tinged with a hint of nervousness. "Mom," Rachel said, her eyes sparkling with a lightness I hadn't seen in years. "I hope you don't mind, but I invited Victor to join us tonight." "Of course not," I replied, stepping back to welcome them. "There's always room at our table." As they stepped inside, I noticed the subtle way Victor's hand brushed the small of Rachel's back, a gesture of support, not possession, hinting at a connection that was still forming. Robert emerged from his study, greeting them with warmth. "Just in time," he said, clapping Victor on the shoulder. "The steaks are ready for the grill." Dinner was a revelation filled with easy conversation and bursts of laughter. Victor fit effortlessly into our dynamic, his thoughtful insights and dry humor complementing our own. Alex's name never came up. There was nothing left to say. After dinner, as Rachel helped me clear the dishes, Robert took Victor to see his prized tomato plants. Through the kitchen window, I watched them talk, Victor listening intently as Robert shared his horticultural wisdom. "He's a good man," I said quietly, glancing at Rachel. She followed my gaze, a small smile playing on her lips. "Yes, he is." I hesitated, then asked, "How long has this been developing?" Rachel's cheeks flushed slightly, but her voice was steady. "Nothing's developing. We're colleagues, friends. It's too soon for anything else." I nodded, respecting her boundaries, but her blush told me there was potential, even if she wasn't ready to admit it. She rinsed a plate, her expression growing serious. "But when I am ready, it'll be different. I know what to look for now, what matters." "And what's that?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Consistency," she said thoughtfully, "between words and actions, between who someone is in public and private. I want someone who doesn't need to diminish others to feel big, who doesn't see my success as a threat, someone who values my family as much as I do." I squeezed her shoulder, my heart full. "You deserve nothing less." Later, as Rachel and Victor prepared to leave, she pulled me aside while Robert showed Victor a book on sustainable gardening. "I forgot to tell you," she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "I got a new perfume today." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, elegant bottle. Jo Malone, the same scent she'd given me, the one Alex had mocked. "I realized something," she said, spraying a light mist on her wrist. "I've always loved this scent. I bought it for you because it reminded me of elegance, confidence, wisdom, everything you are." She inhaled deeply, her voice softening. "And now it reminds me of strength too, of knowing my worth." Tears pricked my eyes as I understood the weight of her gesture. She was reclaiming something Alex had tried to tarnish, turning his mockery into a symbol of resilience. "Besides," she added with a wink, "if this is the scent of old people, I might as well get a head start." Our laughter rang out, free and unburdened, a sound that carried no trace of the shadows that had once loomed over us. As they left, Robert joined me at the door, his arm around my waist. "Well," he said softly, "I think we're witnessing the beginning of something there." "Maybe," I agreed, watching their car disappear down the street. "But whatever happens, she's making her choices with clear eyes now. That's all we ever wanted." He kissed my temple, his touch grounding. "That and her happiness, which she's claiming on her own terms." 6 months later, I stood in the grand ballroom of the Denver Art Museum, watching Rachel accept the Women in Technology Leadership Award. Elevate had become a beacon of ethical innovation under her and Victor's guidance, their partnership, now both professional and personal, earning praise as a model of collaborative excellence. As Rachel spoke to the captivated audience, her words resonated with a truth forged in hardship. Success isn't built on stepping stones of other people. True innovation rises from collaboration, from recognizing that different perspectives strengthen us. Her eyes found mine in the crowd, and we shared a smile, a silent acknowledgement of everything we'd overcome. In that moment, I thought back to the day I overheard Alex's cruel words, the sting of his dismissal. He tried to make me feel small, but he'd failed. Rachel's journey, her resilience, her reclamation of her worth, had shown me that the greatest revenge isn't retaliation. It's living fully, authentically, in the knowledge of your own value. Alex had mocked my scent as old people smell, blind to the wisdom and strength it represented. That wisdom, that strength, was my legacy to Rachel. Not just a perfume, but the courage to stand tall, to transform pain into power, and to embrace the truth no matter how fiercely it burns.